Hello and welcome. This is Scott Barrett, and I am going to present this video training presentation to you. This is a mandatory for all new salespersons that recently joined the broker. So knowing that, I first want to give you a warm welcome to our family, and we are here to make your business as successful as you desire. We look forward to providing guidance and services and caring for your business the same as you do with the tools, the training, the support that we provide. And I want to kind of give you a reminder of really what your business is, and that is it's all about serving others. And inside that, you're basically helping individuals and families buy and sell their most valuable asset. And in order for you to be successful, I think these things are really what is important. One, that you believe in yourself, that you're servicing your business with passion. Um, your success is also driven by the fact that you love what you do. And then at the end of the day, we really need to have fun doing it, correct? So those are very important things to think about. And then we come along with you on the journey of your success. So now that I've got that, I'm going to now go forward and share with you the importance of our policies, guidelines, and procedures as a salesperson. And let me go over some of the objectives. We're going to kind of review and give you a little bit of understanding of the most commonly asked questions by salesperson regarding the policy guidelines and procedures. I'm going to kind of step through and review with you the compliance segment of the brokerage and how important it is that you understand this thoroughly and follow it, because it's an area where we have probably the most challenges on the broker side. And then also, upon completion, you're going to be required to take an orientation quiz at the completion of this video presentation and our safety video presentation. This quiz must then be submitted to the broker using the instruction on the bottom of the second page. To obtain this orientation quiz, please go to the cloud back office and ask Luxy and use the keyword orientation quiz. Upon joining the broker, salespersons are provided, you were provided a hard copy of the salesperson's policy and guidelines manual. If for any reason in the future you can't find your hard copy, you can always go to the cloud back office under Ask Luxy using the keyword policies to obtain another digital copy, or maybe just to hone in on specific questions that you might have about the broker's policy and guidelines. They're individually listed within the Ask Luxy section of the cloud office site. All salespersons are obligated to abide to all policies and procedure of the broker at all times. Understanding the broker's policies, guidelines, and procedures will ensure that you are working most effectively and efficiently, meeting compliance requirements, and ensuring your personal safety. You are required to contact the broker regarding any policies or guidelines that you do not understand, or that may be a personal concern or an issue with you specifically. This is an obligation, and you should do that immediately. Our standards of service: salespersons are expected to have a certain level of service. And let's go through these. One, salesperson must adhere at all times to all Florida laws and governance as pertaining to their real estate license. Salespersons must adhere to all realtor coded ethics at all times. Salesperson must present a good image and judgment to the public and others within the real estate industry while conducting their business. A salesperson's professional skills, honesty, and integrity should be the foundation of his or her basis for working with customers. Also, want to say success grows when you give exceptional customer service. As you're taking additional education with our organization, you'll learn really quickly that it's all about the customer service. We preach that over and over and again. That's what your business is about. It's imperative that you give it exceptionally, assuming that you want to be successful. So, what is required by the broker for your transaction record compliance? Let's go through this. This is very important that you understand this very thoroughly. Broker transaction record compliance, and this was pertaining to the things that you need in the transactions. Number one, we need all completed documents listed as required within the transaction record. When you begin a new transaction record within our cloud office system, it will specifically list the actual required documents. These documents must be complete. They can't have missing pages. They can't be missing information that should be filled in on them. They must have all the initials and signatures and dates listed on them. We have no exceptions to this rule. If we find any thing that isn't complete or too satisfactory, it will be noted back to you so that you can make the necessary corrections. And then we need all additional known documents signed by the parties to the transaction. So this could be an additional addendum or disclosure or anything else pertinent to that transaction that may be a special circumstance that it was executed in addition to the standard documents. And then all email correspondence deemed important to retain in the transaction record. Please understand that you can actually send and receive emails directly from the transaction record, and or you could forward an email that may have went to your business email account to the transaction record so that it stays with the transaction record in the cloud back office site. And where would this be appropriate? If you have a transaction that has just very concerning situations going on in it, and you may consider that there may be repercussions at some point based on what's going on in the transaction, you would find that very important, and that information should be added to the transaction record. So you'd forward that email to the record so that it would be maintained with it. And any personal notes regarding important situation or events about the transaction. And again, this is to use your better judgment. If there are situations that have occurred with the transaction that could have repercussions or situation that may occur anytime during or after that transaction has closed, you would want to add a note to explain that situation and it be recorded with the transaction record. And then big yellow here, executed documents must be added to the cloud office within 72 hours. So as immediate as possible after you've executed a listing agreement or a contract between a buyer and a seller, it's imperative that you immediately put those documents into the transaction record and everything else required at that point. And we are requesting that to be done within 72 hours of the execution of those documents. Broker transaction records compliance at the time of listing or executed contract. I show the seller side and the buyer side. So this is the minimum required documents that you can expect. The actual, for the seller side, the actual listing agreement, associated addendums, a seller's property disclosure, and a copy of the property tax records found generally in the appraiser's website, the property appraiser's website, we want a copy of that screenshot of that property record. On the buyer side, the broker's disclosure to buyer signed and executed correctly, a wire fraud notice form, the actual executed purchase contract, all associated addendums to that contract, a seller's property disclosure, an executed version, and then again, the property tax records at the time of contract. And I'm going to repeat myself here. Executed documents must be added to the cloud office in the transaction record within 72 hours that they're executed. Post-closing, seller and or buyer side, it doesn't matter which side of the transaction you have, we need these 4 items. We need the broker buyer walkthrough inspection form. If you're working on the seller side, it's imperative that you maybe have a copy of a walkthrough form to provide to the closing agent to ensure that we have the buyer sign off that they're satisfied with the property at the time of closing. Understanding that perhaps some of the buyer's brokers do not utilize a final walkthrough inspection form, yet we want one. We want that buyer to sign off that they've had the opportunity to do a walkthrough and they're satisfied with the property at the time they went to closing. And then we need a signed alter or closing statement executed, a photocopy of your commission check. So if you're getting paid directly at closing, which should be the case almost 100% of the time, if not 100% of the time, but we need a copy of that check. And then we obviously need our original broker commission check. These above 4 items must be delivered to our broker's mailing address, which is 11923 Oak Trail Way, Port Richey, Florida 34668. So how do you get paid at the time of closing? You need to, 1, make sure you have added all required compliance documents to the cloud office transaction records for each party of the transaction which you are directly servicing, no less than 7 business days prior to closing. Again, we first ask that you have all documents in 72 hours of execution, but you absolutely need to make sure that they're there and you're complied no less than 7 days prior to closing date. That would, where all possible. We understand there may be a situation with an addendum that's added at the last moment, but as soon as those things are executed, they need to be added to the cloud office system. Submit the commission disbursement request from the contract transaction record no less than 5 business days prior to the closing date. If you are doing this 4 days, 3 days, 2 days, the day before, there's a probability that you may not see your check dispersed to you directly at closing. Understand, as much as we want to make sure you get paid, you're not the only salesperson of the brokerage. We have a high volume of transactions going through every single day, and we work on things in a timely manner. So to ensure that you're best positioned to get paid at closing, make sure that you're doing your commission disbursement request no less than 5 days. The system will not allow you to do that commission disbursement request if you are missing any documents whatsoever. So that's important as well. Not meeting this requirement will result in a delayed receipt of your commission payment. Again, we want you paid. So if you're not paid at the time of closing, Just understand this is the steps that are then required before you'll see your commission check. The broker has to receive the commission from the closing company. The broker then has to deposit the commission check into the broker's banking account. The broker's bank has to clear those funds, and then the broker will be able to issue a commission check payable to your name, and the broker will mail the commission check directly to your mailing address as in our file. So with all those steps, estimated time to receive a commission check is going to likely be 7 to 10 business days. Not paying you at the time of closing is a lot of extra work for everyone and a delay in getting you paid, of course. We do not want your money that you've earned. We want you to have it. So please abide by our simple policies on the compliance requirements that I've just described to you. And everyone will be happy. Okay, so let's talk about the broker's sponsorship benefit. Going to kind of explain that in a little bit detail so you understand the opportunity and how this thing works. So if you introduce the broker to other sales agents in the marketplace, you as the salesperson will earn income received by the broker from successfully closed transactions of any real estate agent that joins the broker as a result of your introduction. Excuse me. As the number of agents increases that join as a result of a salesperson introduction, the percentage of that income for all of the agents that are in the brokerage because of your introduction will actually increase. So let's look at that in more detail. So this chart kind of lays it out. If you can see, it says 1 to 4. It says 15% underneath that, 5 to 9 directly under. It says 20%, 10 to 24, 25%, the 25th, and each additional 35%. So the way this works, if you introduce 4 associates that join the brokerage and are selling and closing real estate transactions, each of those would result in 15% of the revenue to the broker will be paid directly back to you on a quarterly basis. Once a 5th agent joins the brokerage from your introduction, so that if there's 5 active agents in the brokerage that you introduced, then you will be paid 20% on all 5. So the first 4, you would get a raise of 5% from 15% to 20%, and then the 5th one would be at 20%. Now, when you reach that you have 10 active agents that are in the brokerage selling real estate and closing transactions, you will get a new raise. So all 10 of them will be paid out to you at a 25% split of the brokerage's revenue. And then when you get to 25, then you get another raise, and every associate or real estate agent that is a part of the brokerage that was introduced by you, you will be paid 35% of the broker's revenue on a quarterly basis. This product obviously, or this benefit has qualifications and guidelines. It is imperative that you have read in detail the independent contractor agreement when you join and this section of the guidelines manual as well. But the sponsorship benefit income is calculated at the end of every calendar quarter and paid out to the salesperson within 30 days thereafter. So the first calendar quarter would end at the end of March. At the end of March, from January 1 through the end of March. And so all the transactions that close by those that have joined the company as a result of your introduction, we will tally up based on the number and what percentage you qualify for, and then you'll receive a check, a revenue check for those transactions on or before the end of April. And then for the transactions that close from April 1st to June 30th, you'll receive your check on or before the end of July, and they're same after for the next 2 quarters. The percentage of payout is based on the number of agents sponsored by the salesperson actively with the broker as of the last date of the calendar quarter. So it's very important to know if you have enough agents underneath you to raise your tier or your percentage that you earn, that many agents are actively with the brokerage as of the last day of the quarter, which would be the end of March, end of June, end of September, and the end of December. If that number of agents change, maybe somebody that's joined moves to another brokerage and your number drops. If you drop below, so from 5 to 4, your percentage will drop as well. Vice versa, if you get a 5th one before the end of the quarter, then it will raise. Sponsorship benefit is subject to salesperson closing a minimum of 1 real estate sales transaction during the calendar quarter. Sponsorship benefit income is otherwise reduced in accordance with the salesperson's agreement. So please refer to your independent contractor agreement, because basically what it says, understandably, that this business income is a derivative of successfully closing real estate transactions. It's truly what the business and brokerage is all about. This is just an additional benefit, but if we have 100 agents, no transactions are closing, no income is coming in. So it is a requirement that you're closing sales as well as the others that you sponsor. If you're not closing transactions, then your benefit amount is reduced by each quarter or reviewed by each quarter. Always remember that the broker reserves the right to accept, deny, and terminate any salesperson whenever a broker determines the decision is in the best interest of the broker. As much as we would love to just bring new salespersons into the brokerage, that's great and all, but we are a brokerage that has a certain criteria that determines whether that a salesperson is an adequate fit for the brokerage, and we do reserve the right to make a decision to accept, deny, or in the event that we have a salesperson within the brokerage that is not participating well and following guidelines and rules, we perhaps will terminate them. Please understand that this is at our discretion. The following are answers to many frequently asked questions by salespersons. So I'm just going to quickly breeze through some of the things that we often get asked as a broker and explain our policies. So let's go. What is the broker policy on use of the brokerage logo and advertising? Broker prohibits any alteration of the company brand logo, the colors, or the proportionate dimensions. So you're welcome to use the actual logos. We have a couple different versions of those. We just can't have you change the colors of our company logo, and you need to keep the dimensions the same in accordance with the way they were designed. Broker requires that all salespersons use the brokerage brand and logo as applicable by state law for real estate. So there are specific laws that we disclose the name of the brokerage that we're a part of as sales associates, and that that there is also some situations where the size of the branding is required in proportionate to other things that you put in the ad. So it's imperative that you um, follow those rules and laws accordingly. While laws, guidelines, and policies may change, please refer to the Salesperson's Policy and Guidelines Manual to read in detail the current Florida law and realtor rules on requirements of the broker branding and other that must be adhered to when advertising real estate. So we actually have, I think, two and a half pages within our guidelines manual that goes more specifically into the advertising and the requirements, and it has a lot to do with the idea that we're marketing in social media and blogs and in so many different ways in the world today. And there's a lot of guidelines and rules and laws that are important that you understand and adhere to so that we're not in violation or risking our license or anything like that. So please read that section entirely and follow it. If you have any questions, please reach out to the broker. What if my customer wants me to perform the final walkthrough property inspection for them? Salespersons, for liability purposes, are prohibited to performing the walkthrough inspection on behalf of the buyer. If a buyer is unable to personally conduct a final walkthrough inspection, salesperson should recommend that the buyer have someone personally known to them perform the walkthrough inspection on their behalf. Please keep in mind that the broker policy requires all buyers, represented or not, complete a final walkthrough inspection form, regardless if a final walkthrough inspection was done. If you review the broker's form on this, you'll see clearly that there is a checkbox that says I've completed my walkthrough inspection. I am satisfied with the home as is. The other option would be that I understood that I had the right contractual right to do an inspection and I chose not to do that. So it is again imperative that we have that form signed, but it's also important to understand that you are putting a huge liability on yourself and the broker if for any reason you were to actually conduct that walkthrough inspection on their behalf and believing that they would be as satisfied with the condition of the home at the time of the walkthrough inspection as you would be, and therefore we prohibit you from being able to perform that inspection on their behalf. If you have any questions about this, please refer to the broker. Who enters my listings in the MLS system? Salespersons are responsible for entering their own listings into the MLS system and to follow the rules and guidelines set forth by the MLS provider. MLS provider may require mandatory training before a salesperson is granted the right to add edit listings. Salespersons need to verify they have completed the required training as soon as possible and notify broker confirming completion of the required training to be activated with the listing add edit access. What do I need to be compliant with MLS listing data? To be 100% compliant, you must abide to the terms of the listing agreement and or MLS service. The broker's residential listing agreement states that the agent will do the following. So this is very important that you understand this. As the broker or Florida Luxury Realty, we have our own proprietary listing agreement. So on the broker's listing agreement, Section 9A, Broker will provide seller a full listing detail copy of their property as entered into the MLS within 3 days for the seller's review and confirmation that the information is accurate and provides a true representation of their property to prospective buyers and their agents. In the event that any information is stated inaccurately, the seller will make immediate written notice to the broker for all corrections needed, and broker will make corrections and provide notice of the corrections to seller. Non-notification in writing of corrections assumes that the seller accepts full acknowledgement and certifies that the foregoing information contained in the MLS provider's computer system is true and accurate to the best of the seller's knowledge. Seller assumes all responsibility to confirm receipt of the full listing detail copy and confirmation of corrections requested as described. So what does this say in summary? That you, as the listing agent, will put the listing, enter it into the MLS, and then you will print and assumably a PDF version of the full broker version of that MLS data, and you will send that to the seller and ask them to review it and inform you of any inaccurate information or information that needs to be corrected immediately. And you must send this to them within 3 days. So as soon as you put that listing in, please print a PDF copy and send it to that seller via email as confirmation that you've done so. And then that information or the seller should respond to that, either that everything is correct or with any corrections that need to be made. What to do if I receive a contract that has unique terms or I need to add unique terms for a special circumstance? It is critically important that any time anyone adds or alters standard written clauses or terms to any real estate document, that the salesperson always has the broker review the document before having a customer sign. Consequences for not following this broker policy could result in irreversible harm to the customers, yourself, and the broker, resulting in an E&O claim or legal ramifications. So anytime that there's stuff put in the additional terms or the need to use a blank addendum to write something that is not in the contract standardly, we have a policy that the broker has to review that and approve it before you use it. If my seller has never lived in the property, do they need to complete the seller's disclosure form? It is Florida state law that the owner of residential property has the obligation to disclose all material facts about that property they own to prospective buyers that are not readily observable. The law does not provide any exceptions for this when just because the seller has never lived in that property. The broker requires property owners to complete the entire disclosures. It is very important that the owners answer questions honestly when they're not 100% sure that they actually choose the option I do not know or unknown. Again, we require that all listings have a seller's disclosure completely filled out and signed appropriately. And secondly, in the event that the seller does not know information or the answer to a question on that document, that they choose the answer correctly that they don't know. And it is important that unless they're 100% sure that that is the correct answer to choose. What if there are questions that I have that are not covered in this presentation? Without a doubt, you'll have plenty of questions as you're beginning to do business and conducting transactions. It is essential that you do not guess at what you are doing, but always contact the broker staff for guidance you need. As stated before, we are here to help you, and you must request the help that you need at the time you need it. That's very important, and that's one of the biggest things that we take pride in at Florida Luxury Realty is the level of assistance and support and the ease of getting that support that you need. It is important for me to explain that I covered only a few of the salesperson's policies and guidelines today. There are many more that was not covered here, and I highly recommend that you read the entire manual provided to you. And of course, I can only expect that you have read that manual as we request. Thank you very much for doing that. At this time you have completed this video presentation, you always have access to watch it again if needed. Remember that you need to also watch the additional required orientation video, which is on safety, if you have not done that already, and that you be sure to then answer the questions on the orientation quiz and submit it correctly to the broker. I look forward to helping you with your business. Thank you very much for joining me today. Take care.